She thought she could control him forever. 10 years of marriage, built on trust and love, shattered in a single evening. She told him she needed space, but behind those words hid a deeper truth. He didn't beg, he didn't plead, he simply let go. But here's what she never expected. Freedom can feel a lot like loneliness, and indifference can be the most painful revenge. While she embraced her new life, he quietly disappeared from hers. And by the time she realized it, it was already too late. What happens when the person who once gave you everything suddenly stops caring? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. Fiona and I had been married for 10 years, a decade woven together not just by shared memories, but by real experiences that had shaped us. We met in college, our lives slowly intertwining from nothing, built brick by brick through struggles and triumphs. We weathered financial hardships side by side, celebrating every small success and supporting each other through every setback. I had never been under any illusions. Marriage wasn't a never-ending stream of bliss. But I had believed, with absolute certainty, that what we had was unshakable. That belief shattered in an instant, undone by a single phrase she uttered one evening. We sat at the dinner table, the sound of silverware against porcelain, the only thing breaking the silence. I had cooked spaghetti, her favorite. She barely touched her plate. At first, I thought she was just exhausted from work, burdened by stress. She seemed distracted, her movements slow and absent-minded as she twirled pasta around her fork without ever bringing it to her lips. Lowering my glass, I studied her carefully. "Fiona, are you okay?" She released a long breath, her gaze fixed downward. And then, in a voice that seemed to pull the air straight from my lungs, she said, "Xander, I need some space." The words felt foreign, as if they belonged to someone else, spoken in a language I didn't understand. I set my fork down, leaning slightly forward. "Space?" She nodded, still avoiding my eyes. "Yeah." Her voice was steady, her tone unwavering. I need to be on my own for a while. I need to figure things out." A heavy silence settled between us. My mind raced, trying to grasp the meaning behind what she had just said. Figure things out? Independence? From what? We had never lived in some stifling, oppressive bubble. She had always made her own choices, moved freely, lived without restrictions. I had never been possessive, never interrogated her about where she went or who she spent time with. I never pried into her phone or hovered over her like some jealous shadow. Our marriage had always been built on trust. So why was she suddenly asking for something she already had? Independence from what? My voice remained measured, but there was a sharp edge beneath the calm. She gave a weak shrug, still refusing to meet my eyes. "I don't know. I just feel stuck." Her words carried no emotion, no anger or sadness, only a detached emptiness, as though she had rehearsed this conversation over and over before finally bringing herself to say it. Stuck. That was new. Just weeks ago, we had talked about the future, about moving into a bigger house, maybe even starting a family. She had smiled at the thought. And now, suddenly, she was trapped? I could have demanded an explanation, pushed her for answers, fought to fix whatever problem had surfaced without warning. But I didn't. Because deep inside, I knew. This wasn't about space. It wasn't about independence. Something else was at play. And so, instead of clinging to her, I did the last thing she expected. I let go. "All right," I said, leaning back in my chair. She hesitated, her grip tightening around her fork. "Wait. What? You need space? Take it." Her eyes widened slightly, caught off guard by how easily I agreed. I could see it, the flicker of uncertainty, the brief flash of doubt. This wasn't the reaction she had expected. Maybe she had anticipated resistance, pleas, a desperate attempt to keep her from slipping away. Maybe she had wanted to feel irreplaceable. But I refused to play that role. And for the briefest moment, something shifted in her expression. Perhaps she had imagined a scenario where she could ask for distance while keeping me tethered, waiting, ready to catch her if she decided to return. But that wasn't going to happen. That night, everything between us changed. At first, she seemed almost liberated. She started going out more, staying out later. Her wardrobe changed, new dresses, higher heels, styles she had never worn before. And then there was her phone. Before, she had left it lying around, untouched and unlocked, notifications flashing freely. Now, it was always in her hand, always buzzing. And if I walked into the room, she would tilt the screen away or lock it immediately. I said nothing. I stopped asking where she was going, stopped waiting up for her when she came home late, stopped checking in. And she barely seemed to notice. For a while, she thought she had won. But people who chase freedom rarely anticipate how empty it feels when they finally have it. And that's exactly what started happening. The cracks appeared gradually, small, almost imperceptible at first, a hesitation where there had once been confidence, a flicker of uncertainty in her movements. And then, one night, she stumbled through the front door well past midnight. The woman who stood before me was no longer the Fiona I had known, the one who used to send a quick text if she was running late, the one who used to slip into bed carefully so she wouldn't wake me. This version of her entered our home like she owed no one an explanation, bracing herself as if expecting an argument. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, completely at ease. I didn't look up right away, but I could feel her watching me, waiting for a reaction. After a moment, she shifted, crossing her arms. "You're not even going to ask where I was?" I glanced at her briefly, before turning my attention back to my screen. No. That wasn't the answer she was expecting. Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was trying to determine whether I was serious. She had wanted freedom, and she had it. But maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to realize that freedom felt an awful lot like loneliness. She lingered a moment longer, as if daring me to react. When I didn't, she let out a quiet, exasperated sigh, rolling her eyes before turning toward the bedroom. But just before she disappeared down the hall, I caught a glimpse of something, an instant of frustration, barely concealed. She wanted me to push back, to prove that I still cared. But I didn't. And in that brief moment, she realized it. Something between us had shifted. A week later, things escalated. Fiona's texts became more frequent, but they weren't the usual reminders or mundane requests. No mentions of picking up groceries, no casual check-ins about household chores. Instead, she wanted to know where I was. The first time, I was out with friends when my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. "Where are you?" I read the message and set my phone down without responding. An hour later, another text arrived. "Are you coming home soon?" I ignored that one too. For months, I had been little more than an afterthought in her world. And now, suddenly, she was keeping tabs on me? The irony almost made me laugh. The next evening, as I was getting ready to go out again, the shift became undeniable. I had just finished buttoning my shirt when Fiona appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, leaning against the frame. Her eyes followed my movements. "Where are you going?" she asked, trying to sound indifferent, but the tension in her voice was impossible to miss. "Out," I answered, fastening my watch. Her brow creased. "With who?" I smirked, picking up my keys. "Why does it matter?" She hesitated, visibly caught off guard. I didn't think you'd start pulling away like this." And there it was. The moment of realization. The illusion she had carefully crafted was beginning to fracture. For weeks, she had pretended my absence made no difference, but now she was on the receiving end of that same indifference. And she hated it. But the truth was, I didn't. For the first time, I wasn't waiting. I wasn't wondering. I wasn't wasting energy on someone who had already moved on in every way except in name. She had wanted space. Now she had it. And only now did she understand that it wasn't what she wanted at all. Then, it happened. Fiona had left her phone on the coffee table before stepping into the kitchen. Normally, she kept it locked. Not this time. I hadn't been searching for anything, hadn't intended to invade her privacy, but as I glanced at the screen, a message popped up. I miss you. When can I see you again? The words glowed against the dark screen, cutting through whatever remnants of hope I hadn't realized I was still holding on to. My stomach tightened, but my expression remained unreadable. No anger, no surprise, just confirmation of what I had suspected all along. She never needed space. She never needed time to think. That had all been a carefully woven lie, one she had fed to both of us. What she had truly wanted was the freedom to explore someone else without losing the security I provided. She wanted options, a fallback plan, a husband waiting in the wings while she entertained something new. And now, for the first time, she was realizing she had miscalculated. I stared at the screen a moment longer but didn't reach for the phone. I didn't scroll through her messages or try to figure out how long it had been going on. Because in that moment, everything was clear. I didn't care anymore. Whoever he was, whatever had been happening, it no longer mattered. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. I wouldn't ask her who he was, how long it had been, or why she had done it. I already knew the answer. She had convinced herself she could have both. That I would always be there, waiting, while she tested the waters elsewhere. But she had already lost me. And now, she was the one with something to lose. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. I got dressed, grabbed my car keys, and drove straight to a lawyer's office. There was no doubt, no second guessing. I had made my decision the night before. This marriage was over. The lawyer was efficient, all business. I told him exactly what I wanted, a clean break. No drawn-out battles, no unnecessary drama, just signatures, paperwork, and my freedom. He nodded, asked a few questions, and started drafting the documents. By the time I walked out of his office, the process was already in motion. I drove home, knowing Fiona wouldn't be there. The night before, she had mentioned running errands, and for once, I was grateful. I didn't want to see her. I walked inside and wasted no time. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Only the essentials, clothes, toiletries, a few personal items. Moving through the house, I saw how deeply our lives had been intertwined. But there was no nostalgia, no hesitation, no regret. Before I left, I made one last stop in the kitchen. I opened the drawer where we kept our important documents and pulled out our marriage certificate. I stared at it for a moment, absorbing the weight of everything it represented. Then, without a second thought, I tore it in half and placed the pieces in the center of the table. That was my farewell. With my suitcase in hand, I stepped out the door and never looked back. That evening, I checked into a hotel, and for the first time in a long while, I felt free. The stillness of the room wasn't suffocating. It was a quiet relief. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of ownership over my own life. It was as if I had finally taken the wheel, steering toward something that was mine alone. A couple of hours after settling in, my phone buzzed. Fiona. I let it ring. Then it rang again, and again. The messages followed. Xander, where are you? Why is your stuff gone? Please, talk to me. I didn't respond. She would find out soon enough. A few days later, she was served with the divorce papers. It wasn't long before my phone started vibrating again. This time, I chose to answer. The moment the call connected, her voice poured through, frantic, urgent. Xander, what is this? What are you doing? I leaned back, unwavering. Ending this. Her breath caught. You're serious? Completely. Silence stretched between us before she finally spoke, her tone shifting, soft, pleading. "Xander, please, can we just talk? Whatever this is, we can fix it." A humorless chuckle escaped me. "Fix it? You are the problem, Fiona. And I know." Another pause. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, "Know what?" I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't soften the impact. I told her the truth, cold and sharp. "I know you've been cheating." A sharp inhale. "Xander, I didn't let her finish." "That's why you needed space, right? That's why you wanted independence? To figure things out?" I exhaled, already drained by this conversation. Turns out I needed space too, and I figured out that I don't need you. The tears started, calculated and performative. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. "That's your problem now." "Xander, please don't do this." I said nothing. I ended the call and blocked her number. Then I shut off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and for the first time in years, I smiled. My life was finally mine again. The divorce was swift, no dragged-out fights, no last-ditch efforts to hold on. She didn't contest it, probably knowing she had no real ground to stand on. When it was over, I moved forward. A new job came along, and for the first time, I was living for myself. Months passed. Fiona became nothing more than a distant memory, a lesson learned. Then, one evening, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked different. Not bad, just worn, like someone who had spent too much time chasing something that was never really there. She saw me first, hesitated, then, as if deciding there was nothing left to lose, walked over. "Xander." Her voice was cautious, her smile small. I acknowledged her with a nod. "Fiona." Her gaze flickered to my cart before returning to my face. "You look good." "Thanks." I didn't return the compliment. She shifted on her feet, exhaled, then spoke. "Look, I wanted to say I'm sorry." I raised an eyebrow. "For what exactly?" She swallowed. "For everything. For taking you for granted. For making the worst mistake of my life." A pause. Then, almost as an afterthought, she added, "It didn't work out with him." I nearly laughed. "Of course it didn't." She took a deep breath. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but maybe we could try again?" I studied her for a long moment before shaking my head. "No, Fiona. We can't." Her face fell. "Xander, please." I cut her off. "You lost me, and there's no coming back from that." Her shoulders sagged. She looked like she had more to say, but simply nodded, blinking back tears. "I get it." I gave her one last look before turning away. As I left the store, I felt no anger, no regret, just freedom. This story has come to an end. In relationships, trust is not an endless resource. When one person decides to take a break, they must be prepared for the other to learn how to live without them. Love is not something you can put on hold while searching for something better. This story is a lesson about the value of loyalty and the consequences of betrayal. Sometimes, when you think you can leave and come back anytime, you realize you've been left behind alone. Don't play with someone's feelings. Don't destroy what took years to build, because not every door stays open forever. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you? He was the man who could fix anything, except maybe the woman he loved. Imagine giving someone your heart, only to realize you're just their private joke when no one's looking. Declan built a life from scratch, turning wrenches and busted pipes into a successful business. But when his fiancée Sable starts using his career as comedy material at her posh corporate party, the cracks in their relationship are exposed in front of everyone. What do you do when love feels like home, but respect is missing? This is a story about pride, betrayal, and the quiet power of walking away when someone can't see your worth. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. My name is Declan, and I'm 35. I run my own plumbing business, a trade I picked up from my uncle, who mentored me as though I were his own son. When he left me his small shop, I seized the opportunity to build on his legacy, expanding it from a modest two-person operation into a thriving business with a team of 8. 3 years ago, I met Sable at a backyard barbecue. She worked in corporate marketing, spoke in polished industry jargon that sometimes went over my head, but carried herself with a kind of effortless confidence that drew me in. Despite our different backgrounds, we connected over a shared passion for horror movies, spontaneous ice cream runs, and weekend kayaking trips. At first, everything between us felt easy, but as time passed, subtle differences began to emerge. Her world revolved around polished professionals, and at her work gatherings, I often felt like an outsider. She never openly belittled me. Yet, whenever I mentioned my profession, she had a habit of steering the conversation elsewhere. It was never outright dismissive, but the implication was clear. She preferred to keep that part of my life separate from hers. I told myself it didn't matter, that love was what truly counted. After 2 years together, I proposed, and she accepted without hesitation. For a while, I believed we were solid. Then came the night of her company's holiday party, the night that changed everything. Determined to make a good impression, I dug out my only suit, reserved for weddings and funerals. Sable, radiant in a shimmering blue dress, was practically buzzing with excitement as we arrived at the venue, which had been transformed into a dazzling holiday spectacle. "Declan, stay close, okay?" she murmured. "I don't want you getting lost." I chuckled. "Don't worry, I'll be your shadow." Inside, servers weaved through the crowd, trays of champagne flutes balanced expertly in their hands. While Sable eagerly accepted a glass of wine, I opted for sparkling water. She introduced me to her colleagues, Luna, who was overseeing the DJ, and Aaron, a sharply dressed man with a firm handshake. "So, how do you two know each other?" Aaron asked. With a smile, Sable flashed her ring. "Declan's my fiancé." The warmth in her voice made me feel, at least for that moment, like I truly belonged. For a while, everything seemed to be going smoothly. Then Victor, one of her co-workers, approached with an amused smirk. "Sable, you promised to introduce us to your legendary fiancé," he teased. "We hear he's got a magic touch when it comes to fixing things." I laughed. "I do my best." A woman nearby leaned in with curiosity. "So, what do you do for a living?" Before I could respond, Sable, now on her second, maybe third drink, giggled and interjected, "Oh, he's my personal plumber." A few chuckles rippled through the group. Then, with a playful smirk, she added, "So if anyone's toilet acts up tonight, don't worry. I've got the hookup." I forced a smile. I'd heard jokes about my job before, but something about the way she said it, like I was a novelty rather than a partner, left me unsettled. Later, as we sat for dinner, more introductions followed. The conversation at our table shifted toward my work, just as Sable's boss took the stage to deliver a speech. "So, Declan, how does a plumber manage to date a corporate rock star like Sable?" someone asked. I smiled. "Running my own business gives me the flexibility to set my own hours." Before I could elaborate, Sable cut in, her voice louder than necessary. "Yeah, but that also means he spends his days knee-deep in some pretty nasty stuff." She smirked. "At least he cleans up before coming home." Laughter spread across the table. My face burned, but I said nothing, telling myself she was just a little tipsy, just trying to be funny. And yet, the gnawing feeling remained. She wasn't presenting me as her equal, she was making me the punchline. As the evening wore on, Sable's boss, Naomi, stood to give a toast, recognizing the hard work of the team and highlighting a few standout employees, including Sable. Beaming, Sable leaned in and whispered, "I might be getting a promotion next quarter. Can you believe it?" I mustered a smile. "That's incredible. I'm proud of you." She squeezed my hand before turning back to the speech. Soon, Naomi invited team members to the stage for brief remarks. When Sable's name was called, I nudged her encouragingly, and she walked up with confidence, champagne glass in hand. "Thank you, Naomi," she began, her voice carrying through the room. "This means so much. Our team worked incredibly hard on this campaign." Applause followed. She took a breath, then continued. "I also want to give a special shout-out to my fiancé, Declan." She gestured toward me, prompting me to stand. Feeling awkward but wanting to be polite, I rose with a small smile. Sable grinned. "That's my plumber fiancé," she announced with a laugh. "If your sink or toilet ever gives you trouble, he's the one to call. And don't worry, he's pretty affordable." Scattered laughter filled the room, but this time the sound carried a different weight. There was an edge to it, a sharpness in her tone that stung. She sipped her champagne, clearly enjoying the moment. Someone from the front row called out, "Hey Declan, do we get company discounts?" More laughter. Sable turned to me with an amused grin. "Maybe," she teased. "But no freebies. We've got bills to pay, right, honey?" I forced another smile, but my chest felt tight. This was supposed to be her night, her celebration, yet somehow I had become the evening's entertainment. When she returned to her seat, giggling, her face flushed with excitement, I leaned in and asked quietly, "What was that about?" She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, come on, Declan. Don't be so serious. It was just a joke." I swallowed hard, but the knot in my stomach refused to ease. It didn't feel like a joke. With a casual flick of her wrist, she dismissed me, her attention already shifting to a nearby colleague. I stared down at my untouched drink, a slow, dull ache blooming in my chest. The music swelled, the party rolled on, oblivious. Sable reached for another glass of champagne, unfazed. I pushed back from the table, rising to my feet. The need for space clawed at me, anything to put distance between myself and the suffocating realization that something between us had shifted. Stepping outside, I inhaled deeply, letting the crisp night air fill my lungs, cutting through the fog in my head. For a moment, I just stood there, breathing, my thoughts looping in an endless, frantic cycle. How did we get here? Why had Sable thought it was acceptable to humiliate me like that, reducing my career to a punchline in front of her colleagues? The sharp sound of heels clicking against the pavement pulled me from my thoughts. She was following me. A second later, her voice sliced through the stillness. "Hey." Impatience tinged her tone more than concern. I turned to face her. She still clutched her champagne glass, her expression unreadable. "Are you seriously upset about this?" she asked, her brow knitting in mild irritation. "Yeah," I admitted, working to keep my voice steady. "Sable, you made a joke out of my career, in front of an entire room of people. They weren't laughing with me. They were laughing at me." She let out a sharp breath, rolling her eyes. "Oh, come on, Declan. You're overreacting. It was just a bit of fun." I exhaled slowly, fighting to keep my frustration in check. That's exactly the problem. It wasn't fun for me. You turned me into some kind of spectacle, something to amuse your colleagues. Her cheeks were flushed. Whether from embarrassment or the champagne, I couldn't tell. "You're blowing this out of proportion. People tease each other at parties. It's normal." I shook my head. "Not like that. Not by tearing down what someone does for a living. You made it seem like my job is something to be ashamed of." She looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I respect what you do, but let's be honest. It's not exactly prestigious. I was just making light of how different our worlds are." I crossed my arms. "Respect? You only find my job charming when it's convenient. But the moment we're around your colleagues, it's a joke. And this isn't the first time. This has been happening for a while. She glanced back toward the entrance, suddenly cautious, as if worried someone might overhear. Declan, can we not do this here? This is my company's party. Let's go back inside, have another drink, and talk about it tomorrow. A sharp wave of anger surged through me. No, Sable. I'm done pushing this aside. Her expression darkened. What's that supposed to mean? I drew in a steadying breath, searching her face for any flicker of remorse. It means, I said quietly, I can't marry someone who doesn't respect me. She let out a disbelieving laugh, brittle and sharp. You can't be serious. You're willing to throw away our engagement over a harmless joke? I looked down at my hand, my fingers tightening around the simple band we had chosen together. My hands trembled slightly as I slid it off. For a moment, I just held it, remembering the day I proposed. Sable's eyes widened, alarm creeping into her features. Declan, don't you dare, she warned, her voice rising. I extended the ring toward her. If you can't understand why this matters, then there's nothing left to say. I won't spend my life defending my career to the one person who's supposed to support me. Her mouth parted in shock, and she took a step back. Oh my God. You're actually serious? All this over a couple of jokes? My jaw tightened. They weren't jokes. They were insults. You embarrassed me in front of everyone, and you won't even acknowledge it. Her expression hardened, frustration boiling over. So what? You expect me to beg for forgiveness over something so minor? Grow up, Declan. People joke about their partner's jobs all the time. I never complain about the way you come home smelling like grease, or how you're always exhausted and covered in grime. A fresh wave of pain crashed through me. Do you even hear yourself? Instead of apologizing, you're doubling down. She folded her arms, her lips pressing into a thin line. Fine. I'm not sorry, and I'm not standing out here in the cold while you play the wounded victim. I looked at her, really looked at her, and the truth settled in my chest like a stone. She wasn't the woman I thought I loved, or maybe she never had been. All that remained was this dismissive, indifferent person who saw me as something less. Then this is it, I said quietly. She let out a hollow, incredulous laugh. I can't believe you're throwing everything away over this. You couldn't handle a little teasing, so now you're walking away? I placed the ring in her palm. I'm walking away because I deserve someone who's proud of me. Without another word, I turned and stepped back inside. I only had one thought: grab my coat and leave this night behind. As I re-entered the party, a hush seemed to settle over the room, the weight of my decision pressing against me. But for the first time that night, I felt lighter. Maybe people had overheard fragments of our argument, or perhaps the tension between us was so thick it was impossible to ignore. I reached for my coat, keeping my expression unreadable. Just as I was about to step out, Sable stormed in behind me, gripping the engagement ring so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her face was flushed with frustration, her voice a sharp whisper. "Not here," she hissed. "You're causing a scene." I glanced around briefly. Aaron was murmuring something to the person beside him, and Naomi, her boss, observed us with thinly veiled concern. But at that point, I was beyond caring about appearances. I wasn't the one who turned this into a public spectacle, I said evenly. I tried to have this conversation privately, but you shut me down. She reached out, fingertips brushing against my sleeve, but I stepped back. Declan, please. Let's talk about this when we're both calm. I met her gaze, disappointment sitting heavy in my chest. That moment has passed, Sable. Without another word, I turned and walked away. The drive home was silent, aside from the persistent buzzing of my phone. Message after message lit up the screen. We need to talk. You're overreacting. I'm sorry. I ignored them all. If she couldn't respect me in public, then what did that say about our relationship? By morning, she was still in the house, moving around quietly, but the air was thick with words left unsaid. I could feel her watching me as I got ready for work, waiting for me to engage. But I had nothing left to offer. Later, she started shifting the narrative, telling our mutual friends that I had lost my temper over a harmless joke. Some took her side, others reached out to hear mine. I kept my response simple. This wasn't about one joke. It was about a repeated pattern of disrespect. Some understood, others dismissed it. One message stood out in particular. Dude, if you're that sensitive about plumbing jokes, maybe pick a career that's harder to mock. That one stung, but it also reaffirmed why I had walked away. That night, I told Sable to pack her things. The house was mine. I had bought it long before she came into my life. She tried to downplay everything, insisting I was making too big a deal out of it, but I was done with the debate. By morning, she was gone. She moved back in with her parents. A few days later, she shared her version of events online. When a man can't handle a strong woman with a sense of humor, his true colors show. According to her, I was insecure, controlling, unwilling to accept her personality. I chose not to engage publicly, but I did talk to people who mattered, like my cousin Todd, who had known me forever. She's twisting it, he said. You've never been insecure about your work. She just doesn't want to admit she was wrong. Then, as if the universe was making a statement, karma intervened. Not long after she moved home, her parents' bathroom pipes burst, flooding the floors and seeping into the walls. A mutual friend later mentioned the repair bill was in the thousands. For the first time, Sable probably understood. My work wasn't a joke. It was essential. She never reached out again, and I never got an apology. Instead, I focused on what truly mattered: growing my business, expanding my team, mentoring apprentices who actually valued the trade. Months passed. Sable changed departments at work, seemingly trying to move past the fallout. Rumors floated around that she was dating someone from her office. I never cared enough to ask for details. My life had moved on. One evening, after a long day of installing pipes in a historic building, I sat in my truck, watching the golden light reflect off my company's freshly redesigned logo. A deep sense of gratitude settled over me. I won't lie. There were moments I missed certain things about Sable: her adventurous nature, the way she'd curl up next to me during scary movies. But I never missed the way she made me feel small. Eventually, I started dating again. This time, I found someone different, someone who saw the value in what I did, who admired my skills rather than ridiculing them. She loved that I built things with my hands, that I created something real, and she was proud of me. That changed everything. Now, whenever someone asks for relationship advice, I keep it simple. Pay attention to how your partner talks about you in public. Do they uplift you, or are you just another punchline? Because respect isn't optional, it's everything. This story has come to an end. It doesn't matter what you do for a living: plumber, doctor, barista. If the person next to you is ashamed of you or looks down on your work, that's not love, that's convenience for them. A real partner will be proud of you, your hard work, and will stand by you both privately and publicly. Never let anyone turn you into a joke to make themselves look better. Respect is not optional. It's the foundation of any relationship. And if someone can't give you that, have the courage to walk away, because one day you'll find someone who truly values and appreciates you for who you are. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.